My father tapped his silver spoon against his crystal wine glass. The dining room went dead silent. He smiled, wrapping one arm around my sister Erica, and proudly announced they had officially booked the luxury Asheville estate for her wedding. The table erupted in cheers. I stared at her fiancé, Trevor, knowing his bank account was perpetually overdrawn. I asked exactly how they afforded that massive deposit. My mother reached across the table and patted my hand. Her smile never wavered. She told the entire room they simply accessed my $96,000 inheritance fund to cover the costs. She framed my stolen life savings as a beautiful, mandatory sacrifice for the family. Just weeks before I turned 30, the air in the room vanished. I swallowed the heavy, copper taste of betrayal in my mouth, gripping the edge of the mahogany table until my knuckles turned pure white. I checked my bank account the next morning. The balance read 0. I drove straight to the branch manager, demanding the authorization forms. They handed me a single sheet of paper. It was an early distribution and gift affidavit. At the bottom sat my signature, perfectly forged, pressed right next to the official stamp of a notary public. I recognized the notary's name immediately. It was my mother's oldest friend from her tennis club. They did not just make a mistake or borrow funds in a moment of desperation. They conspired. They sat down, practiced my signature, involved a corrupt family friend, and committed documented felony fraud. I called my mother from the bank parking lot. I demanded the money back by the end of the day, or I would call the police. She laughed, a soft, condescending chuckle that made my stomach turn. She told me to stop being so dramatic, claiming I was ruining Erica's special season. 10 minutes later, my phone vibrated with an Instagram notification. Erica had gone live. She sat on her pristine white couch, tears streaming down her face, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. She told her thousands of followers that her jealous, mentally unstable sister was trying to destroy her wedding out of pure spite. The comments flooded in, calling me toxic, telling Erica to cut me off, praising her bravery. The real attack came 2 days later. I teach high school English. It is my sanctuary, the only place where I am respected and valued for my work, not just what I can provide. The principal called me into his office during third period. He looked deeply uncomfortable. He slid a printed email across his desk. My mother had sent Erica's crying video to the school board, along with a formal community concern complaint. She claimed I was experiencing a severe psychological breakdown and making violent threats against my own family. She weaponized motherly concern to disguise an assassination attempt on my career. The principal explained his hands were tied. District Human Resources policy required him to place me on mandatory paid administrative leave pending a full psychological evaluation. I packed my classroom into a single cardboard box. Walking out to my car, the weight of their cruelty nearly crushed my lungs. They thought taking my livelihood would break me. They thought stripping away my classroom would force me to crawl back to them, completely financially dependent, begging for scraps of their approval. They forgot I have been surviving their psychological warfare my entire life. I brought the forged affidavit and the suspension notice back to my apartment. My boyfriend, Marcus, sat on the couch, reviewing the paperwork. Marcus runs a massive commercial real estate development firm. Though he prefers plain black t-shirts and quiet weekends over flashy displays of wealth. While my phone exploded with toxic text messages from my aunts and cousins calling me a monster, I sat in total silence. I used the exact same psychological detachment I use to de-escalate screaming teenagers in my classroom. Hysteria starves when it has nothing to feed on. Marcus looked at the venue contract Erica had so proudly posted online. A slow, chilling smile spread across his face. He pulled up his corporate portfolio on his tablet and turned it toward me. 2 weeks ago, his development firm finalized the acquisition of that exact historic estate in Asheville. He owned the venue. He did not yell. He did not express outrage. He simply picked up his phone and called his corporate legal team. He emailed them the forged, notarized affidavit. The instructions were simple. Flag the $96,000 deposit as stolen funds tied to a felony conspiracy. Seize it under corporate fraud recovery protocols. And route it entirely back to my account. The trap was set with terrifying, quiet precision. My mother sent a text on Thursday. It was a classic narcissist ultimatum. She told me I was permitted to attend the 200-guest rehearsal dinner on Friday night in Nashville, provided I publicly sign a waiver forgiving the financial transfer and blessing the marriage. If I refused, I was officially excommunicated. I typed one word in response: fine. Marcus and I arrived at the Asheville estate just as the sun set behind the mountains. The ballroom dripped in crystal chandeliers and imported white roses. Erica cornered me in the lobby, wearing a designer silk dress. She leaned in close, the scent of her expensive perfume suffocating. She whispered that she always wins, and I would always be the pathetic spare part of this family. I played the defeated, broken daughter perfectly. I nodded, letting her bask in her supreme arrogance. We moved to the main ballroom. Derek stood on the elevated stage at the head table, tapping his glass to command the room's attention. He gave a sweeping speech about family loyalty. He called me up to the table, pulling a gold pen from his tuxedo jacket, gesturing to the legal waiver sitting on the pristine white tablecloth. 200 wealthy guests watched, waiting for the prodigal daughter to submit. Marcus stepped up beside me. He placed his hand gently over mine, stopping me from taking the pen. He looked directly into my father's eyes. Bypassing the theatrical microphone grab, Marcus placed a thick, leather-bound corporate folder on the table. He leaned in, his voice low, steady, and loud enough only for the head table to hear, though the tension instantly paralyzed the entire room. Marcus introduced himself as the chief executive officer of the firm that now owned this property. He slid the forged, notarized affidavit next to the waiver. He informed Derek and Vanessa that the wedding was permanently canceled due to corporate fraud. The $96,000 had already been legally seized and returned to my account. Derek's face drained of all color. He sputtered, threatening to sue, threatening to call security. Marcus slid a second document forward. It was a confess judgment promissory note, backed by an immediate lien on my parents' family home. Marcus laid out the reality. They had committed a documented felony. The local police were currently parked at the bottom of the estate's driveway, waiting for Marcus's phone call to execute the warrants for fraud and forgery. Marcus gave them exactly one option: sign the confession, log into their mobile banking app right now, and wire the corporate penalty and cancellation fees directly to the venue's holding account. The fee was $32,000. It was every single cent of their liquid emergency savings. Sweat dripped down my father's forehead. His hands shook violently. He looked at my mother, who clutched her pearl necklace, gasping for air as her perfect societal facade crumbled into dust. Derek pulled out his phone. His fingers trembled as he authorized the wire transfer, draining his life savings in front of the cold, unblinking eyes of my boyfriend, Trevor, realizing the money was entirely gone and the wedding was a sham, quietly backed away from the table, turned around, and walked out the front doors. He abandoned Erica without a single backward glance. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. Marcus and I drove back to Charlotte that night. The money was safe in my account, The parents were financially ruined and socially humiliated, but a narcissist facing total defeat is a dangerous animal. 2 days later, Erica drove to my apartment complex for a final desperate strike. She broke into my parked car, picking the lock on the passenger door, and planted her own $15,000 engagement ring entirely under the front seat. The moment the lock clicked, Marcus's high-end dual-channel cabin dash cam activated. It sent a silent motion sensor alert directly to my phone. I watched the live infrared feed of Erica shoving the ring under the floor mat. I called the police to report a burglary in progress. The squad car pulled into the parking lot just as Erica slammed my car door shut. She instantly pulled out her phone and went live on Instagram, sobbing hysterically to the officers, claiming she tracked her stolen ring to my location and was just retrieving her property from her evil, thieving sister. I walked downstairs in my sweatpants, holding my tablet. I did not raise my voice. I agreed to press full charges for the break-in. I handed the officers the tablet, playing the crisp 4K resolution video of Erica picking the lock, holding the ring, and planting it inside my vehicle. Erica froze. Her live stream was still running. Thousands of her followers watched in real time as the officers turned away from me, read Erica her rights, and placed her in handcuffs. She screamed, begging our mother to fix it. As they pressed her into the back of the squad car, she trapped herself with her own false police report, her digital facade. Her freedom and her reputation were permanently, irrevocably destroyed. The judge sentenced the corrupt notary to 3 years in state prison. Because of the undeniable paper trail and the video confession Marcus secured at the venue, Derek and Vanessa pled guilty to felony conspiracy to commit fraud. They were ordered to pay restitution and massive legal fines. They had to list the family home for sale just to cover their defense attorneys. Erica received 18 months of probation and mandatory community service for filing a false police report and evidence tampering. The school board, upon receiving the police reports and the court dispositions, issued a formal apology, completely reinstated my teaching position, and granted me back pay for the suspension. The church community, the tennis club, and the neighborhood completely ostracized my parents. They lost their house, their savings, and their standing. 4 months passed. I sat on the wraparound porch of the new house Marcus and I bought together. The air smelled like pine needles and fresh rain. The mail carrier dropped off a thick envelope. It was from my mother. I opened it carefully. She wrote 5 pages detailing how hard this season had been for her, how the community had turned their backs on a grieving mother, and how I needed to drop my boundaries and come help them pack up the house they were forced to sell. She actually wrote the words, "I did this all for the family, and I am still your mother." There was no apology. There was no accountability. Just a hollow echo of a woman demanding I return to the role of the sacrificial lamb. I did not feel anger. I did not cry. I simply folded the letter, walked into the kitchen, and dropped it into the trash can. I did not reply. I poured myself a cup of coffee and walked back out to the porch, leaning my head against Marcus's shoulder. When you spend your entire life as the designated fixer in a toxic family system, you are conditioned to believe that setting a boundary is an act of violence. You are taught that your worth is directly tied to your willingness to absorb their abuse, clean up their messes, and stay absolutely silent while they stand on your shoulders to make themselves look taller. But dealing with my family taught me 3 rules that completely changed the trajectory of my life. Rule number 1, silence is a weapon, and hysteria is a trap. Toxic people thrive on emotional reactions. They push your buttons to make you scream, cry, and defend yourself. Because the moment you react emotionally, they can point their finger and call you the crazy one. They use your reaction to justify their abuse. The most devastating thing you can do to a narcissist is deny them a reaction. Cold, documented facts and absolute silence are the only shields that actually work. Rule number 2. Forgiveness without accountability is just permission. Society loves to tell us that we must forgive our family to find peace, that holding on to anger is toxic. But keeping the peace in a toxic family simply means you are enabling the abuser to stay comfortable while you suffer. Real peace does not come from sweeping betrayal under the rug. Real peace requires cutting out the rot, establishing ironclad consequences, and refusing to negotiate your own dignity. Rule number 3, blood does not mandate loyalty. Family is not a biological accident. Family is an action. It is a daily choice to show up, to protect, and to honor one another. Marcus showed me more genuine family loyalty in a single week than my parents and sister did in nearly 30 years. You are allowed to walk away from people who hurt you, even if you share a last name. You are allowed to grieve the family you deserved while fiercely protecting the peace you have built. I deleted their phone numbers from my contacts. For the first time in my entire life, the silence on my phone did not feel lonely. It felt like absolute, unshakable freedom. If you are the fixer from Peoplely, the one expected to constantly set yourself on fire just to keep them warm, I want you to hear this loud and clear. Stop. Let them freeze. You owe them nothing. What boundaries are you terrified to set right now? Tell me in the comments. Because I promise you, the peace waiting on the other side is always worth the war. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are sitting there yelling, why did she even go to that rehearsal dinner in the first place? Or how could she just sit at that table and not flip it over the moment they admitted to stealing her money? It is incredibly easy to judge from the outside. But when you grow up as the designated fixer in a toxic family system, you are trapped in something psychologists call the slot machine effect, also known as intermittent reinforcement. Brooke was not stupid, and she was not weak. When you are raised by narcissists, you become addicted to the crumbs of hope. Every once in a while, they give you a tiny payout, a fake compliment, a brief moment of warmth, just enough to keep you pulling the lever, hoping that this time you will hit the jackpot and they will finally love you. Brooke's initial hesitation was not cowardice. It was the agonizing, real-time process of finally realizing the machine was rigged and walking away. Now, let's talk about the absolute masterclass in financial and legal self-defense Brooke and Marcus just delivered. They did not fight with feelings. They fought with facts. First, we see the audit strategy. When the $96,000 vanished, Brooke didn't just cry in her room. She drove straight to the bank manager, demanded the paperwork, and secured the forged affidavit. Financial abusers, even the ones you are related to, absolutely hate details. They rely on your shock to get away with the crime. Second, building the case. When Erica broke into the car, Brooke didn't run outside and scream at her. She waited. She let the dash cam roll. More importantly, she let Erica actively file a false police report on a public live stream before dropping the evidence. That is how you turn a messy family dispute into an airtight felony trap. 1 year later, I stood in front of my classroom again, the same whiteboard, the same rows of desks, the same afternoon sunlight cutting through the blinds. But I was not the same woman who had once packed her life into a cardboard box while whispers followed me down the hallway. That version of me had believed silence meant shame, This version understood silence was strategy. The school district's apology letter was framed in my home office. Not because I needed their validation, but because I needed a reminder. Institutions can be corrected. Records can be amended. False narratives can collapse under the weight of evidence. But only if you stop begging liars to tell the truth and start building a paper trail they cannot escape. My students never knew the full story. They only knew I'd been gone for a while. And when I came back, I carried myself differently. I laughed more easily. I did not flinch when my phone vibrated. I stopped over-explaining. I stopped accepting guilt that belonged to other people. In small ways, I began teaching from a place of freedom I had never experienced before. Marcus and I built a quiet life. Not a perfect one, a real one. Sunday coffee on the porch, groceries without checking my account in panic, holidays with friends who brought dessert instead of drama, a home where no one used tears as currency. No one turned love into a hostage negotiation. And no one expected me to bleed just to prove I cared. Sometimes peace feels strange when chaos raised you. At first, I kept waiting for the next emergency, the next screaming phone call, the next accusation, the next family member pounding on my door with a crisis wrapped in entitlement. But the silence stayed. And slowly, my nervous system learned that quiet did not mean danger was hiding around the corner. Quiet meant I was finally safe. My parents tried to reach me through relatives for months. Every message sounded different, but every message meant the same thing. Your mother is suffering. Your father is embarrassed. Erica is depressed. The family has been through enough. You need to be the bigger person. The bigger person. I used to hate that phrase in toxic families. Being the bigger person usually means becoming the quieter victim. It means swallowing the insult, paying the bill, cleaning up the disaster, and pretending the knife in your back is just another family tradition. It means protecting everyone's reputation except your own dignity. So I stopped being the bigger person. I became the protected person. That choice changed everything. The day my parents moved out of the family home, my aunt sent me a photo. My mother was standing in the driveway beside a stack of cardboard boxes, her face pale and furious. For 1 second, I felt the old guilt knock on the door of my chest. Then I remembered the forged signature, the stolen inheritance, the attack on my career, the fake concern letter to the school board, the live stream where my sister tried to frame me as a thief. Guilt needs memory loss to survive. I remembered everything. Then I deleted the photo. I did not attend the closing. I did not help them pack. I did not send money. I did not write a soft, graceful message to make their downfall easier to digest. They had spent years teaching me that consequences were something I was supposed to absorb for them. This time, the consequences stayed exactly where they belonged. And that is the lesson I wish I had learned earlier. Love without accountability is not love. It is access. It is permission. It is an open door for people who have already proven they will walk in. Take what they want. And blame you for the broken lock. If you are watching this and you are still waiting for your family to become fair, please listen carefully. They may never admit what they did. They may never apologize in a way that feels clean. They may never sit across from you and say, "We used you. We hurt you. We were wrong." That confession may never come, but you do not need their confession to choose freedom. You do not need their permission to stop paying. You do not need their approval to protect your name, your money, your career, your home, or your peace. For years, I thought walking away meant I had failed as a daughter. Now I understand that staying would have meant failing myself. There is a certain kind of grief that comes with cutting off toxic family. You do not only lose people, you lose the fantasy of who they might have become. You grieve the mother who should have protected you, the father who should have defended you, the sister who should have loved you without competition. You grieve the family table you kept trying to earn a seat at, even while they were stealing from your pocket. But on the other side of that grief is something holy. A locked door, a quiet phone, a bank account with your own name on it, a life where your kindness is no longer treated like a public utility. So if you are the fixer, the funder, the emotional shock absorber, the one everyone calls only when there is a bill, a scandal, or a disaster, I want you to ask yourself one question tonight. If you stopped rescuing them tomorrow, would they still love you? If the answer terrifies you, then deep down, you already know the truth. Stop financing your own destruction. Stop confusing exhaustion with loyalty. Stop handing your future to people who would spend it on their image and call it family. Let the wedding collapse. Let the house sell. Let the fake tears dry. Let them tell their version. And while they are busy rewriting history, you go build a future they cannot touch. Because peace is not given to you by toxic people. Peace is what finally arrives when you stop giving them the keys. Finally, the buyout. Marcus didn't just cancel the wedding to make a point. He secured a legally binding confessed judgment note and drained their $32,000 emergency fund. He understood that toxic people do not respect boundaries, but they always respect consequences. Sometimes securing your permanent freedom requires a financial buyout that strips the abuser of their power. Here's the final verdict. You do not owe your life savings, your sanity, or your career to people who view you as an ATM and a punching bag. Loyalty is a two-way street. And if your family is only driving one way, it is time to permanently close the road. Have you ever had to legally or financially detach from a toxic relative? Tell me your survival story in the comments below. And make sure to hit subscribe so we can keep learning how to protect our peace. Together,